So, welcome everybody. It's so lovely that you're here listening with us today. We are overjoyed to have a really special guest from across the pond for us, a friend from the States. Her name is Debbie Milam, and I'll let Debbie introduce herself now. And this is the lovely Jackie Bull, and I'm sure that you've heard enough about Jackie and myself in some of the other podcasts and videos. Debbie, welcome. It's a pleasure for us to host you here today on Lost for Words.
Oh, Amanda and Jackie, it's such a joy to be with you, and thank you for the opportunity. My name is Debbie Milam, and I am just a fellow human like each and every one of you. I've been blessed along my journey to professionally and personally understand grief, understand loss, understand love, understand the divine intelligence behind life. Sid Banks said that life is a contact sport, and I'd be in the Hall of Fame right now because we have been carried through so many really, really challenging seasons, but have been so blessed in the middle of them. I have a faith-based ministry that brings the three principles into the faith-based community to just show how much they're linked together and how beautiful it is when we can understand who God is, who we are in Him, and then the experience behind life, how we create it. I also am the creative curriculum developer for the Wise Mind Project, which is a middle school mental health initiative that just brings me so much joy. Always been a seeker my whole life because life hurt too much. And I kept looking for the formula not to suffer, the formula, the religion, the path, the tool, the technique that would allow me not to suffer. And I got pretty good at it. And then life just happened in full force. And everything I tried to avoid, suffering, grief, loss, illness, loved ones hurting, all happened. And what I got to see in that season, that there was a divine intelligence behind life. There was, for me, I call God, there was something undergirding me in all of these seasons, that there was a power beyond myself that carried me through. And what I got to see was that even in those moments when I thought I could never take another step forward, those moments that I felt I couldn't even catch my breath, I could. But it wasn't by my strength, it wasn't by my power. It was by this power that was so much greater than myself. And we had years of 10 deaths at one time. I lost count at 40 deaths. And so I've become very acquainted with loss, very acquainted with grieving. And what I got to see, though, was it was kind of like the ocean, that we can stand in the ocean and it's so beautiful, and we get these little tiny gentle waves and they brush up against our ankles. And then sometimes the waves are stronger and they come up and they hit us in the knees and they hurt a little bit. And sometimes there's like a tsunami wave that comes and knocks us on our ass so hard and we feel like we're drowning in it. And that's what grief is like for me. You know, it comes in waves, but the beauty is it always pulls back out and we can always stand back up. And when the next wave comes, we're not as afraid of it because we know, wait a second, I stood up before. Wait a second, God lifted me up out of this. Wait a second, there's a power beyond myself who is the great comforter, the Prince of Peace, who can wash me in peace no matter how many tears are washing through me. That the tears became holy, sacred, healing tears of liquid love, that there weren't anything to be afraid of, that it was part of the design, that we were designed with the gift of tears to allow that healing to come. And then to remember, oh God, I remember when I had this insight, then to remember that who I really was untouched by this, that the spirit inside of me, the one that God breathed life into, was not impacted by the illnesses of others, the mental illness of others, the addiction of others, the loss of others, the death of others. And then I got to see that even in my own physical illness, I've wrestled with autoimmune issues since I was a child, and had times where I had near-death experiences from anaphylactic shock. And they were scary when I was little. And then I became curious about them. And there was a beauty in them. And what I got to see and what I lacked physically, I was compensated for spiritually. I was compensated for emotionally and mentally. And got to see the deeper nature of life, got to see the deeper nature of God, got to see that there were things so beyond my capacity, explanation, understanding, determination, will, drive, that was at play. And I remember the moment we were in a really fascinating season of a lot of loss, and someone I loved really struggling with addictions and emotional issues. And every morning I would wake up to pray and journal. And this particular morning I walked outside, and it was a glorious morning, and I'd forgotten there was a meteor shower. And I walked outside to do my quiet time with God, the divine intelligence behind life. And a shooting star went by, but it was really faint because the city lights behind us were still there. And I said a prayer I'd never said before. And I said, God, show me the magnitude of your majesty. And in a moment, I just heard in my heart, not in an audible voice, but a voice in my heart that said, beloved, if you truly understood the magnitude of my majesty, you would never worry again. For I hold the planets in place, I spin them at just the right speed. I give you gravity so you don't fly off the earth. I beat your heart, I digest your food. So much goes on behind the scenes that you're not even aware of. And it all happens without you doing a thing. And I literally fell to the ground like, oh my, yeah, this is it. There's so much beyond my control that I don't need to be in control of, because it happens without me. But it comes through me, and it happens when you're aware of it. When I was aware of it, a trust was given birth that allowed me to just fall into those arms of grace and mercy when I didn't have the capacity. And even as I'm talking to you guys now, I don't have the physical capacity. Back in May, I had a knee surgery. And when they thought it was just a minor meniscus repair. And when they got in there, they found all this necrotic dead tissue in my knee that they removed. And I did great. And 2 weeks later, I went septic and was sicker than I've ever been. They then started digging deeper, and they found out I had babesiosis, which is similar to malaria. And they put me on long-term antibiotics. So now I have 2 life-threatening infections. The antibiotic gave me a 3rd life-threatening infection called C. diff. And then I got COVID. And it was like, life is a contact sport, and I am fully leveled right now. And I was dying. I was so sick. And they put me in the hospital, and by just this random synchronicity or God kiss, they put me in Holy Cross Hospital. So the whole hospital is covered in crucifixes wherever you look. And I'm like, oh God, I needed that kiss of mercy right now. And by his grace, I came out of the hospital in October, and never got well though. And now I am on 24-hour oxygen. Randomly out of the blue, my heart rate will drop, my blood pressure will drop, my oxygen saturation will drop, even with oxygen on. And I've had to face my own mortality, and at the same time lost numerous loved ones to COVID and other assorted things over this past year. And the profound thing was there was very little fear. There's moments where worry will come up. There's moments of grieving the loss of my physical capacity, my independence, the way I thought things should go in life, the numerous weddings that I'm missing, and family reunions, and being able to play with my grandchildren, even though I get to enjoy them. But that physical play, that physical connection with my husband, the intimacy, all of that was a loss, and all of that I have to grieve. But then there was joy. And because I'm so undergirded by grace, as we all are, but we just don't know it and we forget it, that I can have more than one experience at the same time. I can have grief, I can have grace. I can have sorrow, I can have joy. I can have loss, I can have love. And life has become so holy and precious, and moments are so holy and precious. And tears are so holy and precious. But here's how the power and the intelligence behind life works. When I physically can't really do anything myself except toilet myself, feed myself, and dress myself, I'm dependent on everything else, even for breath in my lungs right now. 2 months after the COVID, the intelligence behind life, God Almighty, took all the work that I had done over the years and opened up a doorway like I have never in my life seen. And I've had a successful, good career. But in a 2-month period, took our middle school mental health videos to a PBS station that 5 million viewers are going to get to watch in between segments for a full year. I could have never done that. 3 of the Bible studies that I have written that are principle-based Bible studies were taken out to 3 mega churches, ministries, prayer teams, and pastoral counseling centers. 10 worship songs that I had written over the years, our worship leader at church turned them into music, sang them, and is recording them. And my book came out, and God said, which is my daily journaling of just asking the divine intelligence behind life for guidance in my struggles, where I can pour out my heart, where I can be totally transparent. That book came out in 4.5 weeks. My last book took 9.5 months. So I had teams of people because I could do nothing. I could barely even hold a cup. And I had teams of people just surround me and go, we got this. So I say to each and every one of you, you don't have to have the strength. You don't have to have the intellect. You don't have to have the capacity. You don't have to have the intelligence. But there is a power so beyond you that holds the planets in place, that spins them at just the right speed, that can do for you what you can't do for yourself. And then I got to see through the eyes of grace. And I often ask this and I pray this: Lord, help me love as you love. Help me see others through your eyes of grace. And boy, do I see something so different than my human eyes see. Because I see that we're all doing the best we can at every moment. And as I've walked this journey, so many of my loved ones are so loving and so present. And there's others who are not, because it's so hard for them and it's so painful for them right now to see what's happening inside of me. But that deep knowing that I have, that they're okay, even when they're struggling. They're grieving in their own way, and I can't change their grief. But I can share what I have seen, and maybe that'll touch them a little bit, and maybe not. But to know that they're okay, and that that same God, that same intelligence behind life is right there for them too. To love them through, to carry them through in those moments when they think they can't do this. And I don't know how many times I said on my knees, God, I can't do this. And then I could. And then I could, and I think that's like that for all of us. But the thing I got to see so clearly too in this season is that it's so normal and it's so human. And even though thought plays a part of this, it's normal, it's human. And that in those moments of overwhelm, if we remember that not to believe our thinking in those moments of overwhelm, to surrender it over to the power greater than ourselves. To remember that we don't need to act on any thoughts in those moments that tell us to hurt ourselves or someone else. Because in those moments of overwhelm, the fear-based part of our brain, the amygdala, takes over and it shuts down rational thought. But the minute we have that insight that there's a God of love holding us, it shuts down the amygdala and it opens up the prefrontal cortex, which is wisdom, discernment, wise decision making. But it also opens up the part of the brain called the anterior cingulate, which is connection. And when we're overwhelmed, when we can feel connection, it quiets down our mind, it quiets down our heart and our soul. And then we know what to do. We know what that next right step is. We don't have to have the whole picture. We just have to know next right step, next breath, next moment. Just guide me, give me the wisdom for that. And we get it. And the wisdom sounds so different than the voices in our head. We could have a gazillion thoughts going on. But when wisdom comes through, those thoughts quiet down. And I used to think that I had to quiet down before the wisdom could come through, but it's just the opposite. When wisdom comes through, the thinking settles down. So it's been an incredible ride. I have seen more miracles, signs and wonders, joy, unspeakable joy, because I allowed myself to go to the depths of the grief. It's kind of like scuba diving. You could shallow dive and you see some pretty things, but when you take a deep dive, you get to see things you wouldn't see any other way. And in the depth of the grieving, I got to experience the full rainbow of emotions. And when I think about it, would a rainbow be beautiful if it was all purple? No, it'd be kind of cool. But a rainbow is so beautiful because of the contrast, the contrasting colors. And our experience is so rich and alive in this humanness. We were designed for the whole smorgasbord, buffet of emotions. And there's nothing wrong with us when we feel them. But when we allow them without the resistance, they move. They move, they shift, they come, they go. And I really got to see this. Probably besides my children and my grandchildren, the most precious person in my life was my mother in love, who was my spiritual mentor and my best friend. And in October, I had the honor and the privilege, out of her 10 children and 83 in her immediate family, She gave me the honor and the privilege to be the only one with her when she made her way home to heaven. And I got to see what an unresisted death looked like. She had been sick for like 2 weeks, and we celebrated her 96th birthday the day before. She had makeup on and matching robe and slippers, and she had her jewelry on, and she looked so pretty and just was bearing witness to all the love that was around her. And I went over the next morning, and she was really weak and really fragile. And I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "No." She said, "I had a really hard night." And I said, "Well, come sit in the chair." And I put her in her chair, and I said, "May I pray with you?" And she just smiled. She said, "I would love that." And I just held her hand and we prayed, and she was smiling. And then she had a book next to her, and I said, "Do you want me to read to you?" And she said, "Yes." And the first passage I read was about God's strength being made perfect in our weakness. And she started to laugh, and she said, "Oh, honey, I could attest to that one." And then I read the next one, and it said, "God will bring light to the darkness." And she took one inhale and went to heaven. And the glory that filled that room was like nothing I'd ever seen. It was the most exquisite, not a drop of fear, just, I'm going to fall into these arms of grace right now, and I'm so ready to let go. And what a gift that was to see. But I also see that the divine intelligence behind life knew what I was going to face in this season and showed me how not to be afraid of death. And showed me that as sick as I was, that there was still this glory, this grace that was holding me, that was loving me, that was guiding me, and that who I was inside was untouched by that. So for all of your listeners that seem higher power, intelligence behind life, divine intelligence, God is right there for you too, whether you feel him or not, whether you sense him or not. Because if you're able to breathe, you're being breathed through. If you're not flying off the earth because of gravity, that power is at work in your life. If you woke up this morning, if your loved ones woke up this morning, that power is at work in your life too. So that's my story.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you so much. Beautiful.
I think I just want to, because what was so beautiful about everything that you shared was I kept thinking trust, trust, trust. And then you said trust. And I just love the way the divine intelligence, I love the way wisdom works. I love the way that just works, that, you know, the whole beauty, and it's more than beauty, because I sometimes think the English language isn't capable of giving us the words that we actually need to express here, because they feel so much more than the word beauty. But the whole magnificence of your story is around your deep trust. Like it just, that just, the thing that emanates for me in the whole of that was that in everything that's happened, there's been this deep trust that the divine intelligence behind all life would hold you through it. And that would give you, and that would bring the experience to life in every moment, whether that be joyful, whether that be fearful, and that you could hold both, and that you were built for it. Yes. And that's just such a joy to. Again, I sometimes wish I knew Sanskrit or something, because I think they have more words. There's more words in that language, beauty in that language, than we can express. But that's what I feel you touched upon. For me, it's the beauty and magnificence of life, even when we're in pain. So thank you, Debbie, from the bottom of my heart, because that's so beautiful. So.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. And, you know, when you said trust, that's been my walk, you know, and it was a muscle that was built. It didn't come right away, but I had enough evidence. And my mother-in-law actually taught me this, was she said, whenever you're fearful, and you can replace any word you want, but for me, and what she taught me was, Jesus, I trust in you. So anytime fear would come up, Jesus, I trust in you. Show me that you're here. Show me what my next right step was. And I had so many times of evidence that, yes, he was right here. Yes, the divine intelligence behind life was right here. And I got photographs of this evidence and actually created books around it and videos around the like angel clouds I would see right after praying this prayer, or 200-foot skywriter crosses above my house. And it was just like, whoa, wait, it is here, you know, but it built gradually. And the more I asked, the more I saw it, the more I saw it, the more I asked. And that's how that intimacy built. And through that intimacy is where the trust built. And, you know, Sid talked about this a lot, that there's a personal and there's an impersonal. So the impersonal divine nature behind life holds the planets in place, gives us gravity, breathes breath into our lungs, whether we believe it or not. But the personal, the intimate, comes from the trust walk, comes from the asking, comes from the getting quiet and the humility of, I don't know what to do, show me. You know, that's where that trust was built, from that.
Something gorgeous that you said, Jack. Thank you, Jackie, for that as well. Debbie, there was something that you said that just stood out for me, which I'd love to name to this little program that we've had here today, or session, or whatever words we use for it. But it was, and then I could.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I could.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
That just brings tears to my eyes, because there were so many moments where I'm like, I can't do this. Can't do this. And then I could.
And there's something about being in the midst of that, you know, working. I know that we all work with people that are really, really in the midst of their suffering. You know, you said something when we had a conversation before this recording, Debbie, which was, if one person hears something, you know, if whatever words come through us today, and one person hears one thing that just eases that suffering, then that's been a great conversation. And that, I think we all know that you know, the psychological system is an intelligent system, in that it brings our thoughts to life. It's bringing everything to life, as you said, the full contact sport, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, and it feels so real. It's powerful. It's powerful beyond measure. And we do get a full taste of the smorgasbord, a full taste of the buffet, and we're built for that, right? I love it. I hear Jackie saying, you know, we're built for life, and we're built for dying, and we're built for death, and we're built for all of it.
Yeah.
It feels like.
And that was the thing, I think, all my life I wrestled with. Number one, the thought that, did I do something wrong that all these people I love are dying? You know, and then the other thought of, I can't bear another loss. And I remember I was on a retreat with Ellen Friedman and Mick Tomlinson. And it was when I first got sick. And we had so much loss at the same time. And I was naming the amount of loss. And I said, it's just too much to bear. And she said, what if you only had to bear one at a time? Could you bear that? And it was like, yeah, we're always given what we need in the moment. in the moment to move through, live through, love through whatever it is in that moment that's there. And the reality was I had no control over these people dying. It wasn't my fault in any way. It wasn't this karmic thing. And, for years I was looking for that one thing that would keep people from dying. And you know what? There wasn't. Death is a part of life. And what I see now too is it's a beautiful part of life, because it's, a graduation. Well done. You did a great job here. Next chapter.
Fast because it's a
I'm sorry, phone's just started doing something.
Thank you, Jackie. So that's, yeah, it's this thing about walking each other home,
Yes. Yes.
I'll ask Jackie to unmute herself there. We are just all walking each other home.
Amen.
Journey in this
So
labyrinth,
true.
as Jackie likes to talk about her labyrinth, we just and there is such learning in the quiet times and such learning in the colourful times.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
yeah. And the expressions for me, it's so interesting when suddenly the labels we put on these different times, from it being boring or a bit slow to being crazy or manic, and we don't know what's coming. We don't know what's the next moment brings, let alone the next day,
But I think the overriding, I mean, there was the trust. So sort of, if I sort of pick out the bits that, like, there's the word trust is just such a beautiful word, because it's sort of like is the thing that feels so counterintuitive to the way we all live now, which is why I think when we sort of tell people the simplicity of this understanding, they spend a lot of time going, that can't be it, because there must be something else than just this trust that actually we're built for this. And what you've demonstrated so beautifully with your experience of life is that when you trust, you get to experience the darkness and the light in full, like everything in Technicolor, in a way that is in no way limited. And I know that's always what we're talking about, is there's this limitation once we start to think that we're in control, or that we're in our fear-based thinking, But when you're able to live from that kind of really dark place all the way through to the light, how much more is available? And that's what really came through as well. Just the I can live it all. I can be open to it all, and the simplicity of that.
Yeah.
So
really gorgeous conversation, Debbie. I love the rainbow metaphor. Like a purple rainbow would be cool, but actually it's the contrast of all the colors that make it so, like, wow.
Yeah.
It feels like that's a really nice place for us to say cheerio. Debbie, would you like to lead us out with a little prayer or anything that you would like to finish on?
I would love to. And I would also, if it's okay, that I invite your listeners. I have a little mini course on my website, God's Comfort in Grieving, and also God's Way to Stress Less. And that's a full course, and principle-based and faith-based. So invite your listeners, if they're curious. It's gracelovewell.org. And dear God, we are so grateful for this time, for this space, for the words that you poured through each and every one of us. Lord, we ask right now that you just take this out. You just give a tap or a nudge to anybody who's in need of hearing something that we all shared today, and that they hear what they need to hear from it. I thank you for every one of our experiences that brought us to this moment, that you didn't waste one moment of suffering. And I just ask right now that each of us continue to be blessed, to be a blessing. And we pray this in your holy name. Amen.
Gorgeous. With love to you, Jackie, Debbie, and anybody who's listening. And all those details will be down below. on this podcast or on this YouTube video or wherever you're watching it. Thank you very, very much.
It was such a joy to be with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you all. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.